All right,
There
we
we
are
go.
back. So hopefully those that we've lost will be able to get you back. You know, the devil's always working
Of
overtime,
course,
right?
of
You know, we
course.
must have something very powerful
Of course.
and
And
impact
he
that
doesn't
we're
want it to
about
get across.
Yeah,
He doesn't want to get
always,
it across.
always. He's always working
But we shall
overtime.
prevail. We shall prevail.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we had our technical difficulty disruption, to say the least,
Yes.
we were talking about mental health
Mhm.
and how sometimes pastors are going through mental health issues
Mhm.
themselves,
Mhm.
and it creates a very uncomfortable
Mhm.
feeling
Mhm.
for them to address the congregation
Mhm.
about something that they're going through.
Mhm.
And do you find that pastors often have realistic expectations when it comes to mental illness within themselves, in the sense that I find that sometimes pastors believe that they have to be perfect all the time,
Mhm.
and they live under so much criticism,
Mhm.
and they live under so much pressure
Mhm.
to always do the right thing, always say the right thing, always do the right thing. Do you think that that plays a factor in sometimes the pastors kind of being effective with mental health?
Yeah, it plays a major role. I mean, you have to understand being a pastor when you are leading a group of people, one, and then if that pastor is married and they have children, and in addition to their responsibilities to the church as well. And then, of course, you have the congregation that depends on the pastor for so much. And so when you have that pressure that is constant, it never changes every day, you're dealing with that. And you're not getting the downtime that you need as a pastor, that becomes overwhelming at a point. And sometimes as a pastor, you feel as if that you're on an island alone. That when everyone is looking to you for answers, they're looking to you for guidance, they're looking to you for spiritual guidance, as if you will. When they're constantly looking for that, and then you're there to offer that type of, because as a pastor, your whole attitude is you're here to serve. The unfortunate thing is sometimes you have some pastors that they don't have anyone that they can go to and they can share their concerns. They can share where they are, what they're feeling, what they're thinking. If they're overwhelming or overwhelmed by all that church brings.
So why do you think? Why do you think that? Why do you think that pastors struggle in that area to find a place, a safe place for them to be themselves?
Well, it's hard. It's hard to do that for some. I can't speak for all pastors, but it's hard because again, you are the leader, and you have individuals that's looking for you for direction. Not only that spiritual direction, but they're looking for so much more. I mean, when things happen around the world, you have your congregation that's looking to the pastor to see how he or she is going to respond to the various issues that's going on in the world right now. When all of the shootings that we may see around the world, and what's going on in politics, you try not to bring politics and church together, but it's something that people want to hear. Where does the pastor stand on this issue? What is he thinking? What is he feeling? And so you have those members that are always looking to you for direction, for guidance. They may not always agree where you are, but they are looking to see where you are and how you're going to respond to certain topics and issues around the
It
nation.
makes sense.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
absolutely makes sense because, like you said, pastors lead,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to lead by example.
Absolutely.
So sometimes when you're walking in a space where all eyes are on you,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be careful who you allow in that space.
And you said something. You have to be the example. I say to the folks at Transformational Life on Sundays that Sundays is for inspiration, Wednesday is for information. And so you want to inspire folk on any given Sunday because you never know what individuals have gone through the prior week. So they come to church on Sunday looking for something that's going to uplift them and really give them the strength and the hope that they need to carry on for the next week. And then the hope is that they're there on Wednesday to get the information. So now you're giving them the information that they need to have something that they can refer back to get them through the other part of the week, giving them a particular scripture. I say to the folk here at TOL all the time, if it's just one verse that you can hold on to, then you say that one verse every single day until it really gets down into your spirit. So whenever the enemy does attack, you have something to reach for. And the Holy Spirit will always bring whatever that verse is, will bring it back to your remembrance, even if it's just one line in that particular scripture, but you have something that you can work with that will give you the strength and the guidance, the direction, the dependency that you need to continue, especially in times such as this. And we're living in perilous times. I mean, it's such a cliche saying, but it is the truth. We're living in a time where people are literally imploding. And our minds are not designed to take on the pressure that we are experiencing even in this time right now. So you're dealing with not only your personal stuff, but then every time you turn on the news channel, you're hearing so much tragedy that's going on around the world. Our minds can't take that type of pressure. So unfortunately, what happens is if people don't have some sort of an outlet, then other things begin to creep in. And unfortunately, it forms or it develops into some sort of a mental health problem. Some is depression, some is anxiety, some is bipolar, some is PTSD, whatever it is. But when you have all of this that's going on in your personal life and then what's going on around the nation, we can't handle that. It reminds me of the movie, The Officer and the Gentleman, when Tom Cruise was talking to, it was like Nicholson, whatever the guy, that. And he said, I want the truth, where you can't handle the truth. And that's the time we're living in, is that everything that's going on around the world, it's a reality. It is true. It is happening right there. And with social media, I mean, it's almost real time these days. And so our minds are just not designed, it's not equipped to handle that pressure.
And you're doing a series right now, a very interesting series at Transformation of Life called Whose Responsibility Is It?
Yes.
And that's a question that I'm definitely interested in asking you today. So our Facebook family can kind of interact with this conversation as well. So please feel free to ask any questions or post any comments that you may have. Chanel, I did see your comment where you said pastors are under a lot of pressure, and that they are. I think Pastor elaborated on the pressures of being a pastor. But one thing that I want to cover is that question is, whose responsibility is it? We know that 1 out of every 3 to 4 people that we know is suffering from some type of mental illness. We can't minimize the mental illness and say, oh, it's only anxiety. Oh, she has, clinical depression. It's only, it's not. It's a mental illness that affects us mentally, emotionally, psychologically. It affects not only us, it affects our nucleus, it affects our family, it affects our workplace. So it's something that we have to talk about. So when we talk about mental health and the effects of mental health, then whose responsibility is it to address mental health within the walls of the church?
Yes.
Is it the responsibility of the leadership and the pastor, or do the congregation and your church members play an active role? Because I know one of the comments that were made in a posting that I did earlier this week is also they share the responsibility because when you come to church, it's about being transparent. But then people don't find that being a church that can be transparent, that they can be who they are, because they feel shamed or they feel that they're going to be judged. So they come week after week after week to the house of hope, to the house of encouragement, to the house of the word. But once they leave, nothing changes.
Yeah, they go back.
So whose responsibility is it? Is it leadership and the pastor, or do the church member play an active role in that responsibility?
You had a couple of questions there. But let me just address the first question first of the series of whose responsibility is it, mental illness in the church. That series was placed in my spirit after the apparent suicides of Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain. And then, of course, we experienced a number of school shootings. You had the one in Parkland, Florida, with Stoneman Douglas High School. You had the other one in California with Santa Fe High School. And then, of course, we had the Las Vegas mass killings that took place there. Then the most recent one, even here in our hometown, in Annapolis, Maryland, actually, where you had a lone gunman who walked into the Capitol Gazette and decided to open fire, killing 5 people. 5 people that when they woke up that morning, they were going to go to work and fulfill their responsibilities to their employer and then return home to their families. And unfortunately, that never happened. And so you have, once I viewed or witnessed those things, the Lord placed in my spirit that we have to address this issue. And how do we address it? And the Lord just placed in my spirit the sermon series, Whose Responsibility Is It? Mental Illness and the Church. Here's the reason why. And you alluded to the fact already. People come to church every single Sunday. And here's the thing. When you look at Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain, for example, 2 people who were on the top of the world in their respective industry, that one day they decided to wake up and really question their very existence. And then they decided to take their own lives. And they leave behind family and friends who love them dearly. And you ask yourself the question, what would actually possess someone to want to take their life? And so after seeing that, the Lord had to really open my eyes and open my heart so that I could, how do I address this as a pastor? Because I know that the partners of TOL are looking at me of how I'm going to address this particular topic. And so when the Lord placed it in my spirit to start the series, Whose Responsibility Is It? I felt that it's the church's responsibility. Here's the reason why I say that. Years ago, people would come to the church for everything. If they had an issue, if they didn't have food, or if they needed help with their gas electric or their mortgage or whatever the situation may have been, they came to the church for all the answers. And so this is no different. Here we're dealing with, and by the way, mental illness is up by 25%. So it's a real issue.
Suicide, actually.
Yeah,
suicide
it's up by 25%. So it's a real issue. And so I felt that we needed to address that, because I said, well, you know what? If there's people out in the world that's experiencing this, then I'm almost certain that people that come to church every single day, that person could be sitting next to you that's dealing with some sort of a mental health problem, and they really don't know what to do. In fact, they could be contemplating suicide themselves. And so it's the church's responsibility, me taking the stance to say, I'm going to address this issue. I'm going to speak to people. I'm talking about real people with real lives who really want to be transformed, don't know how, because they're dealing with this mental health issue, and they're not sure, they don't want to share because they're not sure how people are going to respond to them. And unfortunately,
they have a bad experience
right,
sharing it before,
exactly,
and they're scared to reshare it.
Exactly. And so you have people that may make them feel some type of way, or they feel uncomfortable talking about the issue, or they feel threatened if they share where they are. And then the other thing is, people don't want to make themselves feel too vulnerable, because if they share too much of that information, especially if they're dealing with a mental health problem, they don't want to share because they don't know if they can really trust that delicate information with someone, and whether it's going to be held over them, or they're going to be talked about, they're going to be judged, and things of that sort. So I felt there was a need to shine light on that, to let people know that, first of all, they're not alone, that there are so many others that are dealing with a mental illness. This past Sunday, with this series, we were talking about from 1 Kings, chapter 19. We really started in 18 with the whole background of it, but in 19, Elijah, who had just achieved this great, he had this success in overcoming the 850 prophets of Baal, because Baal was their god. And when Elijah came on the scene, his whole purpose was to get the children of Israel to return back to God. And so when he had gone there, he was able to share the power and the strength of God. And when the people saw that, they immediately returned back to God. And then all of a sudden, when Elijah had gotten word from Queen Jezebel, because Ahab didn't like what had just taken place, had gone to Queen Jezebel and said, listen, we need to take him out. And Elijah fled for his life. He was fearful after he had this amazing accomplishment. He was on this high, and now he was at his lowest, running for his life. And so he ran to a place where it was going to be safe for him. But Elijah actually dealt with depression and contemplated suicide, because what he didn't understand, it was how I was able to have this great success one day, and then the next day I'm running for my life. One day I'm on the top of the world, and then the next day I'm dealing with this sort of where I'm fearing for my life. One day I'm helping people and I'm seeing, people coming back to God and really just giving God praise because the light was shined for them. And then all of a sudden the next day, again, he's running. And Elijah it didn't make sense to him. And it was to the point where he said, listen, God, none of this makes any sense to me. So here's what I want you to do. Just go ahead and kill me now. I want to die now. Take me out now, because I've had enough of this. And, that sounds to me that Elijah was depressed. And it sounds to me that Elijah was contemplating suicide, because none of all that had taken place made no sense to him. But I want to say that if someone that's listening today, or they know of a family member or a friend that's dealing with some sort of a mental health problem, I want to say that they're not alone, that there are others who are dealing with it as well. And as the church, I have the responsibility as the leader to bring awareness to this issue, to let people know, especially who are coming to church, or they are coming and they have family and friends or neighbors or coworkers that are dealing with it, that, hey, listen, you're not alone with this. And it's our responsibility to show them the love and the support. But I do want to say this, that it's going to take more than prayer and having faith.
Yes.
Can I be transparent?
Yes, please.
It's going to take more than prayer and having faith.
Yes.
It's a collective effort, not just with me, but the entire church, to let those individuals know who are sitting in the church, or that they are connected to someone that are dealing with a mental illness or a mental health problem, that we have to show the love and the support and the encouragement. We got to pray and have faith too, but we also want to make sure that we partner with professionals so that we can connect those individuals with the professionals. And at the same time, keep praying and believing that God is going to bring healing to them, but not only bring healing, but also let them know that they can be whole again, that they don't have to continue to stay on this path that they're on, feeling depressed, feeling anxious, feeling, dealing with bipolar, dealing with PTSD, hallucinations, and schizophrenia, and all of those things. So we do have that responsibility to address that.
We have a comment, Pastor, from Sandra.
Okay. Hello, Sandra.
And she said, ideally, family and church should be a safe place where people can be transparent about their struggles. Other people are uncomfortable with acknowledging and accepting without judgment the struggles of others, because they aren't comfortable with doing so about their own struggles. And we kind of touched on that. We definitely touched on that, that a lot of the disconnect that you feel and you sense in church, and even members connecting with other members and checking in and making sure that, hey, the person beside me is okay, they're going through their own problems. They're going through their own struggles. And it's kind of hard to give a lending hand when you're kind of consumed with your own issues.
I'm reminded of a scripture, Hebrews 10:25, and the author writes, "Do not forsake yourselves of assembling together." And sometimes people look at that text and say, "Oh, the pastor just wants us to come to church."
Right.
Well, no. The purpose behind that particular verse there is that it's when you're at those moments in your life where you're feeling down or you're feeling depressed, and you feel that there's nowhere else to go, that if you're feeling that way, there's one place that you can come. A safe place. You're not going to be judged on who you are. You're not going to be judged on what you're going through. But you can come to a safe place where people will open their arms and wrap their arms around you, and they never have to say a word. They can just wrap their arms around you, and that love with just that hug makes all the difference. And that's what that verse is pretty much saying. You need to come to a place where you know you can be safe and be transparent and sharing your struggles is not going to be held against you. And in fact, you will probably realize once you start sharing your struggles and being transparent of where you are, you will be amazed the number of people who are probably waiting for a moment such as that. So they too will begin to share, you know what? They were so open and sharing where they are. You know what? Maybe I can share, even if they don't want to share everything, but maybe I can share just a little bit of what I'm going through. And so that's why that verse that verse really speaks volumes for me, that do not forsake yourselves of assembling together. We need to be able to come together as a church. And that when one of us are going through a struggle or some sort of a challenge or an issue, we as the church has a responsibility to let that individual know, first of all, you're not alone. Number two, I'm here to show you the support that you need. I'm here to take this journey with you. I'm here to walk with you. I'm going to pray with you. We're going to have faith together. We're going to prevail. We're going to fight through this thing. And we're going to make sure that not only that you're going to overcome this, but the most important thing, getting you to a place that you can admit that there's a problem. I think that's the biggest challenge there. Some people are not able to admit that they do have a mental health problem. But here's what happens. When you admit it, that's the first step to healing.
And that's with anything.
And
It's addiction,
absolutely.
Whether it's mental health.
Absolutely.
The first step, if you're an alcoholic, the first step when you go to the program is you have to admit, you have to say it out loud, you have to hear it yourself and say, I am an alcoholic.
Yes.
So that, and I agree, that is always a concern that, as we said at the very beginning, that individuals come to church and they remain silent. And then there's what you call invisible pain. They smile, they come, they sit, they greet, but they walk out and nothing is done, nothing is said. But my question, though, to you, Pastor, is one of the comments that were made in the previous post was, when we're talking about the responsibility, is it? Some of them also mentioned that they're a little skeptical about sharing any type of mental health problems with the church because they don't feel that the church is equipped to handle mental health advice. But I think that in one of the previous points that you made, not once have you mentioned that the church is providing a direct service. You've not said that once, but what you have said is that the church can become a resource center. Because if you can confide in your pastor or in leader, you confide in one person, that can change your life and that can save your life. So it's something we have to keep that in the forefront. That it can save lives.
Well, I want to answer that question, but I want to be transparent for a second. And we kind of alluded to the fact earlier when we went live that pastors too could be dealing with some sort of a mental health problem. And you know me, I'm one to I'll put my life out on Front Street. And I put my life on Front Street for the purpose to have people look at me, and after I share my story and they see how far God has brought me. I share all of that for this reason. Several years ago, I dealt with depression and anxiety myself, and even contemplated suicide. And that was a very scary time for me. Had experienced a major ordeal in my life, in the church, unfortunately, where I experienced a tremendous hurt. And so for 2 years, I dealt with depression and anxiety. And I remember a day I was driving home and I had to call my wife, and she literally had to coach me home because I was having an anxiety attack.
Mm-hmm.
I like being transparent about this story because, again, I want to go back to the fact to let people know that are listening that you're not alone, and why pastors sometimes are in the position that they are in and they feel the way they feel. But I dealt with depression and anxiety, but here's what I'm grateful for, that I had family and friends who showed me love, who showed me support. They showed me encouragement, in addition to praying and having faith. But they also encouraged me to seek out professional help, that I could go and talk about where I was.
I want you to repeat that. What did you also do?
I seeked out professional help to help me to really share where I was in that moment or that season of my life. And I tell you, it was a crazy time for me, because even after I dealt with that, I lost my job. I was still working at that time, so I wasn't even pastoring yet, but I had lost my job. My wife had lost her job. So now mind you, I'm already dealing with depression and anxiety. So now compounding all the other stuff, and then you're going to add all of this to what I'm already going through. And so now you have all this pressure. And as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a provider, God bless you, as a mentor, when you have to fill all of those roles, all of those responsibilities, it's overwhelming. And then you cannot provide for your family the way you know you're capable of doing. That thing took a hold of me to the point that I never thought that I would come out of that. Now, mind you, during that process, there was a scripture that saved my life.
What is that?
Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10. And the Bible says, do not fear. Some translations begin by saying, do not panic, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. That scripture saved my life because I realized at that very moment that though I was dealing with depression and anxiety, I knew with the professional help, with prayer and faith and love and support, I knew at that very moment that I could be victorious over whatever my mental health problem was. And here we are several years later, and we're talking about this. And before we got started, I shared with you that although I still talk about what happened, this is still a process of healing for me. So even having this moment and sharing and being transparent, there's still a healing process for me because God ultimately wants us to be whole, regardless of what we're going through, whatever sort of mental health problem we're dealing with. He wants us to be whole. And what's going to help us to be whole is our faith. But before we can get there, there are other areas that we have to make sure that we alluded to already that's going to help us to become whole again.
Thank you so much for sharing
that
story, because I think someone out there needed to hear it.
Yeah.
Someone out there needed to have hope that I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And if he's a pastor and if he's gone through that healing journey and he is still going through that healing journey, then I can begin mine.
Yeah.
And we have a comment by Chanel: having a mental health problem does not mean you are crazy. We must remove the stigma. You can admit that you are depressed or have anxiety and still be saved and still believe in God. Absolutely.
Chanel, you're on point.
Yes.
That is absolutely correct. That's the beginning. She said that one word, admit.
Mm-hmm.
Admit. So I appreciate that, Chanel. Thank you.
Yeah, and Chanel's actually a licensed social worker.
Oh, is she? Okay.
She is. So she personally understands the background behind mental health and the stigma, again, behind church and mental health. Now, one of the like I said earlier this week, I posted, and several people made comments on the post as it relates to whose responsibility is it in the sense of church addressing mental health in the church. And there were a couple of comments that were made that I want to share with you,
Okay.
and for you to kind of share your thought process
Absolutely.
on these statements. So one was let me say, I believe that every church should have a resource to assist and advocate for mental health. We kind of already touched on that, that it's very important, and that is the primary role of a church. I think that the church should have a sense of responsibility to equip their leaders, not to equip them in a sense for them to become social workers and to treat and to provide treatment, but to be able to know how to process it,
Yes.
how to be able to kind of help someone navigate through the process. What words, what verbiage, what encouraging words can you use? What words you should stay away from when someone who's on the edge and is possibly contemplating suicide. Some things that maybe you shouldn't say to that person. So I think that the church should have a responsibility to be equipped, and its leaders to be equipped how to handle if someone comes to them and says, I've had suicidal thoughts, or I think I'm bipolar. How does the church handle? There should be a protocol established, as well as training behind, so that also its members can feel comfortable in coming to them and not feel like, okay, it's just a pastor. They have no knowledge in mental health. I'm not comfortable going to them. But I think that if the leaders and the pastors had some type of training behind how to handle mental health, I think that it would definitely establish a sense of safety for the church members.
Well, I want to respond to that. I mentioned a little bit earlier that you have some churches that are not equipped to offer those sort of resources. But what they can do is create a partnership with professionals. Now, Transformational Life, we do have professionals who are partners of TOL. But what if you have a partner who may not be comfortable sharing with another partner who has the expertise to help them? That's where it's really important, and this is what TOL has done, is that we have partnered with other professionals outside of TOL. So that if there is someone who comes to me, for example, or to one of the leaders, the protocol is that if they come to one of the partners first, it is to be brought to my attention, especially something as serious as that.
Definitely.
And then it's my responsibility to be able to meet with that individual, but then partner that individual or connect that individual with the partnership that we've created. We do have some professionals that have the expertise in dealing with someone with mental health problems. And if it's okay, if I can mention her name, if that's okay, and you know her, Minister Pamela. I forget her last name. Yeah, Minister Pamela Bell. She'll kill me if I forget her last name. But Minister Pamela Bell, love her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love Minister Pamela Bell. And so now I can honestly say that I've had partners who have come to me who've either had a family member or themselves that was dealing with some sort of emotional issue or mental health problem. And I connected them with Minister Pamela Bell. And she made time for them. And then that partner called me up probably a week or two after that and was grateful that I connected them to Minister Pamela Bell because, first of all, again, what really works is that she's a minister, she's a Christian, and she's a trained professional.
Yeah.
She is trained, licensed, professional that can speak to this issue and that can help anyone that's on or help them through the process and get them to healing and becoming whole again. So, Now, one of the things that I do want to mention TOL, we're taking the extra step that we're calling it the life movement.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm excited about this because with my experience and then the experience of individuals here at TOL that's dealing with mental health problems also, that I felt that there was a need that we needed to put some sort of resource together and then put a team of facilitators together to be a support group, if you will, where individuals can come. Now, this is not just a TOL thing. This is something that's going to be shared with the community to encourage the community, because we don't have anything like that, unfortunately, in this corridor of Liberty Road. And so what we want to do is start what we call the life movement. Now, what we're doing, we're connecting the life movement to a ministry that we'll be launching in 2019 called Celebrate Recovery. And so life movement and Celebrate Recovery will be in conjunction and speaking to various issues. Issues such as abuse, substance abuse, alcohol abuse. But Celebrate Recovery, here's the amazing thing. I've been wanting to do this for 2 years, and here we are 2 years later. They just added another piece that speaks to mental illness. And the term for that particular phase of Celebrate Recovery is called stigma, speaking to the mental health problems that individuals are dealing with. Now, Celebrate Recovery became a reality with Pastor Rick Warren in California Saddleback Church, an individual who came to him, one of his members, he's an author, name is John Baker, and he spoke to the issue of how individuals, not only in the church, but even in our community, that need to be recovered from something, or they need to recover from something. The mental illness piece was added just about 2 or 3 years ago because Pastor Rick Warren's son had committed suicide. And so Pastor Rick Warren decided to add that mental illness piece because he was helping his church to understand, and he was helping himself as well, of how to deal with individuals who are facing mental health issues. And so we'll be launching this program in 2019 to help individuals, not just the areas of substance abuse and all of those other areas, but also speaking to mental illness.
Now, is this program only for members of Transformation of Life, or is it someone from the community can take advantage of this program?
Yeah, this program is designed to not only help the partners here at TOL, but also open this up to the community of Randallstown, Owens Mills, Woodlawn as well, so that they can come to a safe place, understand that they're not alone, and they can share their story and know that their story is going to stay right here. And they can leave this place feeling that, you know what, healing is taking place in my life right now. And this is what I need. I need it somewhere, someone who understands where I am, and that whatever struggles that I'm dealing with, and then hearing the struggles of others, that those conversations, that sort of dialogue, that sort of support group is what's going to help people to be more transparent in sharing their story. And I want to say, when we say story, I want people to understand that they don't have to allow their story to dictate their future. And what I mean by that, they can change their story. Just because it's been your story for the last 6 months or 12 months, that doesn't have to be your story in the next week or the next minute. That you do have the capacity and you have the power to change your story, change your narrative, that you can do that. And so our hope is that when we launch this program, that program will help individuals to understand that they can change their narrative, that they don't have to continue to deal with depression and anxiety and all the other mental health problems. So I know
you said that program in itself is launching in 2019.
Correct.
In the interim of that program launching, I know presently you are doing a series which I would strongly encourage everyone to come on Sundays at 9:30 and be a part of the series. It's whose responsibility is it, but he has different layers that he's talking about as it relates to whose responsibility is it. So outside of just the series that you're doing, what other series do you have planned? Do you have any
Sure,
series
sure,
planned to kind of cover other or address other issues that are indirectly or directly related to mental health?
Oh, absolutely. Because mental illness or mental health problems, it's not just an individual problem.
Right.
It's a family thing.
Well, it's a community.
It's a community.
It's a community problem.
And so it's not just one person. We all play a part in this.
Most definitely.
So after the Whose Responsibility Is It series, which will end on the 29th of this month. And then, of course, I go on hiatus for the month of August because you got to recoup.
Right.
But
you need
when
vacation.
I do.
You're a pastor.
Absolutely. I need a break from the folk.
We fight.
But when I return in the fall, in September, we're going to be launching a new series entitled Family Matters.
Wow. Tell me a little bit about that series.
Yeah. So we wanted to, when we talk about Family Matters, we want to really touch on various areas when you talk about family matters. We want to talk about parenting. We want to talk about marriage. We want to talk about, blended families.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's just a few things that we're going to be discussing because all of those things are real. Real people with real lives who want to be transformed. They want to know, give me some tools, give me some knowledge, give me some understanding that's going to help me to build my family. And then if I'm going through something, help me to understand what are the necessary steps so that I can begin to improve in the areas where we need improvement. Because many families are breaking up because, not because they want to, it's because they really don't have the tools. They don't have the resources. And as we alluded to, some are not willing to share what's going on in their family. You know how it is. Whatever we say in this family or say in this house, it stays in this house. Right. Well, what if, and you know me, on Sunday mornings, I'll put my family stuff out on Front Street. It doesn't matter to me because if I know that it's going to bring some sort of hope or healing to someone, I don't have a problem sharing my story. Lady Joe probably talks to me after I leave here on the Sunday morning. Say, okay, I was okay with you sharing this, but I think you went a little bit too far on this, Pastor. But then I'll get an email or a text and say, Pastor, thank you for sharing that because that's exactly what I'm going through. That's what I needed to hear. So Family Matters is going to speak to those things. And I'm going to be a little bit more transparent. And Lady Joe, I'm probably going to have a nice long discussion with Lady Joe first before I discuss some of the topics from the Hooks family. But I'm going to be transparent because I want people to know that when you're building a family, and especially when you're trying to build a family on build a strong spiritual foundation for that family. And then the other thing that we want to talk about with Family Matters, what if you have a son or a daughter who may be trying to seek their faith, trying to find out where they are in their faith, because they've been given the foundation of Christianity, but now they're at an age where they want to find them. So we're going to be speaking to that also, of how you handle that. And I'm going to be transparent. My daughter, who I call my favorite daughter, I only have one daughter, but I call my favorite daughter. And, she and I had a conversation. And I said, we've given you a faith foundation. We've given you a foundation. And now you can't live on our faith anymore. Definitely. And so now it's time for you to seek out who you are. What is your faith? So I don't want to give too much out, but that's some of the other things that we're going to be talking about beginning in September with the series Family Matters.
And I applaud you, Pastor, for developing the series called Family Matters, because if the devil can't take you out, he'll take your family out.
That's right.
Because he knows if he can take your family out, that he can take you out.
That's correct.
So I applaud the fact that you are touching on a subject matter that is so important. And it has such an impact within all of us. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm excited. And when does this series, when does it begin?
It's probably going to begin around mid-September, is where we're looking. Our anniversary is September the 23rd.
Okay.
So it's either going to start before then or probably the last Sunday in September, because there's a lot that's happening in September.
Right.
So I really haven't determined whether it's going to be mid-September or the last Sunday in September.
Well, we'll make sure to post it on our page, the Reinvent U Vitamins page, as well as my personal page with the link to Transformation of Life Christian Center. Pastor, I want to thank you
Absolutely.
for your time today,
It was my
for your
pleasure.
willingness to be transparent,
Yes.
for your willingness to be honest today on a subject matter that many, like I said, are a little uncomfortable talking about it. And the fact that you are a trendsetter. You
Yes.
are.
I'm trying my best.
You are taking that leap of faith, and even though it may make other people uncomfortable, you're still saving lives.
Well, Francis, that's what I want to do. I want to make people feel uncomfortable. And they may not go over well with some, but I believe in being authentic. And I believe that people are looking for that place where they can come and they're going to get a realness. They're going to get some authenticity when it comes to their faith, when it comes to the Word of God. And it is my hope that every time I stand on a Sunday morning, that the word that the Lord gives me and allows me to pour into the men and women of God, that it is making a difference in their lives. We're in the business of, our slogan is transforming lives and meeting needs. And there are so many needs that needs to be met, and so many lives that want to be transformed. So I am on this mission. I'm on a mission, and let me just put it like this: I love what I do. I love what I do, and that's why I fight such a good fight of faith. Three things that I want to leave with all the listeners, and something that TOL we have adopted here. Three things. I call them the 3 F's: faith, family, and finances. And if I can bring understanding, knowledge, a steadfastness when it comes to those 3 areas of people's lives: faith, family, and finances. And once they get that understanding and that knowledge, through the word, of course, because this is not coming from me. This is the Lord just giving me the anointing to be able to deliver his word in that way. But to speak to those 3 areas of people's lives, I believe that once they get that understanding, you'll really begin to see people take that turn. That's when change will really begin to happen. There's a prayer, and you're familiar with this, and I know we only have a few minutes left, that I always say at the end of service every single Sunday. And in fact, my family and I, we say this prayer together before we leave the house. Oh God, bless me indeed. Enlarge my territory. Keep your hand upon me, and don't allow evil to hurt or harm me. For this is my request, and I believe that it is granted. For you are my shepherd, and I shall not want. The enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. But here's the hope and the promise that Jesus comes to give us life, and life more abundantly. And we're able to experience that abundant life because it is our faith that helps us to be whole again.
Thank you so much, Pastor.
My pleasure.
Now, Transformation of Life sounds like a church that I'm quite sure many would like to visit.
Yes.
So where is Transformation of Life located?
Sure. Transformation of Life is located at 9633 Liberty Road, Suites H and J. And if you're familiar with Liberty Road, and where Liberty Road and Owens Mills Boulevard meets, if you're going north on Liberty Road, you cross over Owens Mills Boulevard, and to your left, you will see some industry parks called Deer Park Center. You make that left. There's a Raimondi's Florist that sits right there in the corner. We're in the second set of suites. Service begins at 9:30 a.m. And we will share so much love. We'll love on you real good. I call it the Chick-fil-A effect. And many of you know, some of you that are listening, I love Chick-fil-A. I love their waffle fries. I love their vanilla shakes, although my wife doesn't allow me to have the vanilla shakes any longer. But I love Chick-fil-A. But people keep coming back or going back to Chick-fil-A for these two reasons. One, the excellent customer service. And two, because they get good food.
Yeah.
Well, that's how TOL, we operate according to the Chick-fil-A effect. One, you come, you're going to get great customer service. And two, you're going to get good spiritual food that's going to want you and encourage you to come back next Sunday. So it's called the Chick-fil-A effect. So if you just remember that, remember the address, we would love to see you and come here. We'll love on you real good. And we're about a people that's about transforming lives and meeting needs. If I can also mention one thing, I know we got a couple minutes. The Lord has also placed in my spirit to begin a somewhat of a broadcast as well, and it's called Word Therapy.
Okay.
And the whole purpose of Word Therapy is to share words of inspiration, to give people hope and strength, to help them to continue on in their journey of faith. And so it's called Word Therapy. It will come to you once a week. It'll be on Facebook as well, Facebook Live. And just look for that. We're going to have a lot of marketing and promoting of that as well. But it's called Word Therapy, a word for your healing. That's the slogan for it, a word for your healing. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah,
so look for that as well. Yes.
Exciting.
Yes.
And real quick, can you provide what's your email, your website?
Sure. The website is www.transformationoflife.org. Again, that's www.transformationoflife.org.
And how can they find you on social media?
Sure. Just search for Transformation of Life Christian Center, and it'll come up. Same thing on Instagram. Just put in Transformation of Life Christian Center, and you'll be able to connect with us, friend us, and follow us as well. A lot of good stuff we put out there with, I put out daily words of inspiration on Facebook and Instagram as well, just giving folk hope to continue on their journey of faith.
Awesome. So you've heard it right out of the mouth of our pastor. Join us every Sunday at 9:30 for a phenomenal word. And like he said, as soon as you come in the door, you will feel loved, you will feel welcome, and you will get a word that will just nourish your spirit.
Yes,
I definitely look forward to seeing some of you this upcoming Sunday at 9:30. Again, Pastor, thank you so much for being my guest today.
My pleasure.
And to those who are on the broadcast, let me just say that I am a mental health professional. And as Pastor said during the segment, you are not alone. So if you feel that you are experiencing a mental health problem and you feel alone and you have no direction, you don't know who to talk to, you absolutely have no idea what type of resources are available, please make sure that after this segment you inbox me, and I will be more than happy to provide you with the resources that you need. Remember, you are not alone in this.
Yes.
And so make sure to inbox. And the last thing I want to share is on November 2nd through the 4th, we are having a women's conference. It's a Reinvent U Women's Conference. We are open for registration. Again, if you're interested in joining us for this phenomenal women's conference, you can just log on to www.reinventubootcamps.com/women's conference. So there are limited slots, so please make sure that you get your slot today, because we don't want you to miss this. It's going to be phenomenal. I know that you're part of it, Pastor.
Yes, looking forward to it.
So I'm looking forward to you being on there. I know you're on a male panel.
Yes.
And we're going to be talking about love and sex, and it's going to be an all-male panel. So it is going to be interesting. It's going to be educational. It's something that, again, a lot of people don't like talking about, but we're going to talk about it.
Yes, absolutely.
Again, thank you guys for joining us. And remember next week to join us at 8 o'clock as we have conversations from our living room to yours. Be blessed and have a great night.